My name is Ericka Williams. This is a presentation in anti-racist art lessons for high school students taking Art 1. This lesson in particular is allowing students to advocate for social justice and develop their contour drawing skills. So the focus for this lesson is to really give students the opportunity to explore social justice issues in historical context, as well as current events surrounding social justice, and develop their own thoughts and feelings towards these issues to help them create dope artwork. The technical focus for this lesson is to just help students develop their their line contouring skills, and also just focusing on the element of line itself. In my district, teaching Art 1, which I'm not teaching art at all this year, unfortunately, but in my district, in teaching Art 1, we are asked to focus our curriculum around the elements of art. So ideally, each 6 weeks, you will be moving through various activities and projects that focus on the element of said unit. So with that being said, that's the direction that I kind of took when developing this lesson plan, just trying to consider what element would I be focusing on and how I could tie that in with social justice and creating a lesson that focuses on social justice and being anti-racist. So the standards or the TEKS for this lesson would be or are considering concepts and ideas from real life personal experiences to create artwork. I kind of just summarize 2A as going through the art making process, and then creating original pieces that express the individual's interpretation of the world around them. So the learning of the learning objectives for this lesson would be to show growth in understanding of the elements of art, specifically line, um, and allowing artists to practice contour drawing by creating multiple drawings of hands through the production of sketches and the final project. The goal is to have at least 80% of students um, being able to use their artwork to advocate for a social justice issue that they care about, and strengthening their technical skills. Students will be given a week to study social justice issues. So to go through the process of looking at the historical context of social justice issues of their choice, the political context, also a global context. So considering social issues that aren't just local, but that are affecting the entire world. And with the idea of using hands to represent or to send a message through their art. Also, just thinking about how hand gestures are interpreted in in different societies, different cultures, and also throughout time. So that also just adds another element of diversity. So students will, and the last objective is students will study social justice issues throughout history, um, and trying to find an issue that is personal to them that they can really translate into their piece. So the procedures for this lesson would be to go through an introduction of the concepts and what the project will actually entail. So typically how I do that is to engage students with a warm up that taps into their prior knowledge. So this warm up, I just kind of thought like have the kids or have the students trace their hands, which is a common art activity that they've been doing since they entered school. So the idea behind that is kind of drawing that connection as we begin to talk about contouring. And then, of course, the whole project is sending a message through hand gestures. So making that connection there early on and allowing them to re-image the sketch of their hand is to just kind of get those creative juices flowing. Okay. So for the hook, students will view graphic art that that is an exemplar art for what they'll be doing for their project, and just kind of asking them to brainstorm what they see, how do they interpret the art, so on and so forth. This style of art, and when I say this style, I just mean using hand gestures and sign language to send messages, particularly social justice messages or art that advocates for social justice, has really kind of been trendy this year. So, like the BLM in sign language, and other messages in sign language, that's kind of been a thing or an art style that's been trending this year with everything that's been going on. So, I feel that would be a good connection. I'm sure that, you know, if your students are on Instagram, like we're on Instagram, that they've seen this type of artwork before. So hopefully they'll be able to make a connection there. The next step would be to just talk about the elements of art, focusing on line, then dive into contour drawing and allowing students to share and ask questions. There's also students will also be provided with a activity to kind of get them started in the direction, or really these activities I like to do smaller activities, or I call them mini projects or pre-projects sometimes, to kind of allow the students to practice the skill, um, to kind of conceptualize what they're going to do before they actually begin on their final art piece or their major um, project for the unit, or you know, that's going to gear towards whatever skill that they're practicing. During the explain portion of the lesson, the teacher will introduce the concept for the project. So again, just going over um, what the project is about, providing some guiding questions, doing some discussion, some whole group discussion, and then reviewing items or resources such as the rubric and other resources that the students will be able to use as they do their independent research and begin working on their project. So this is the vocabulary. Um, this vocabulary is a mix of art-based vocab as well as vocab that they would possibly use or be exposed to in other courses, such as their social studies courses or their ELA courses. So this vocab can go across content. During the elaboration portion, this is where, again, students will be completing those mini projects that'll kind of help them hone in on the technical skills, as well as developing their piece and the concept that they'll be using for their piece. So throughout the art making process, typically it'll be a week or two. The reason that I chose 1 week for this project is because I personally, as an educator, I'm working on giving students less time to complete things, not because I want them to rush through it, but just because in my classes, I don't know if anybody else has the same experience, but in art classes, I feel like it's really easy for kids to kind of lollygag and take advantage of the time given for people to research. And some people develop their pieces slower than others. So I decided to give a week instead of my usual 2 weeks for this assignment. Throughout the week, the formative assessments will be taken from teacher observation, as well as the completion and submission of the mini projects and the pre-project activity. And then just conferencing with students, asking them, about their art making process, the direction that they're taking with their piece, and kind of just picking their brain and helping them develop their art. The summative assessment will be the actual final project. So really just determining how closely did the students follow the rubric when developing their pieces, as well as observing if they actually made a meaningful connection to a social justice issue. You will have students who might just decide to write their name and in sign language or something like that, and having to kind of dive into that and think, okay, is this a connection to a social justice issue? Is your name culture? Just kind of moving through all of those bits and pieces to make sure that the artist hit the expectations for the project. Differentiation for this project, as far as grouping is concerned, typically during discussion and research, there will be whole group discussion. There's room to modify, like in the warm up, or for the guiding questions to do like a turn and talk, to allow students to discuss their ideas in smaller settings, like maybe with their shoulder partner, or if you have your students grouped in stations. So there's definitely room for that in this lesson. If you wanted to, you could give students a list of social justice issues that they could choose from, and group them based on what issues they decided that they wanted to make their piece or have their piece advocate for. But for me, I just thought having whole group discussion, possibly doing turn and talks throughout the lesson, and then releasing students to work independently to do their research and to begin their final project would be ideal for me. The way my classroom was set up, students were at large tables, so the opportunity to mingle and bounce ideas off of each other are gonna happen regardless, just because they are in such close proximity of each other. Now with COVID, if we have to continue to space students 6 feet apart, that would be a different story. Or if they're at home, that would be a different um, challenge to tackle. But for this particular lesson, how I formatted it, it would be mainly whole group instruction, a little bit of turn and talk, and then they'll work independently on their pre-projects and projects. Accommodations for students always include extra time for my SPED and 504. Students who are LEP students, they will have the option to do the project in their native tongue. So ASL, or sign language, excuse me, is different depending on what language you speak. So they'll have they don't have to use ASL. They can use whatever sign language is correlated with their native tongue. There are also tools or resources provided for different learning styles. So just there's a little bit of something for everybody, I like to think. And that is the end of my presentation. So thank you for bearing with me.